Hey, it's off topic, and today we're talking to, guess who? The studio manager of Shelter Studios with a Z, okay? Stop sending us emails saying that I'm trying to find Shelter Studios, but it doesn't pop up. It pops up as something else. That's because you're using an S instead of a Z. Today's topic is going to be about small business and why small people, young people, should be starting their own business, and it should center around something to do with video, music, audio, or the written word. So today, my guest is Clayton Powell, basically the guy that runs this studio. This is actually our home studio. We shoot the radio show from here, and it's really exciting to be here with you again.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
So one of the things that I find interesting is with this COVID-19, one of the benefits, everybody only looks at the negative. One of the benefits is kids can actually start thinking about what they want to do in life and create a business opportunity or whatever, right?
Right. The interesting thing about having time on your hands is there's this lost art form called thinking.
Yes.
And when you have time, you actually find yourself in a position to actually sit down and gather your thoughts and think. You know, when you can get away from the rat race and I have to be here at this time, I have to be there at this time with my friends, I got to go do this, I got to be at work, I have to do my hair, I have a doctor's appointment. A funny thing happens to you when you're forced to sit still and all those distractions go away. You actually have time to think.
Yeah, and that's what's really exciting about what we're going to be doing, because we're going to really run it through Redemption Radio, because there's a lot of Christian principles about small business that a lot of people don't pay attention to. They think it's all about the spirit, and it is, but it's also about a way to build a business from scratch.
Yes, the whole situation with building a business from scratch, you and I talked about this before. King Solomon wrote in the Proverbs, make sure your work in the field is ready, then build your house. And so the ideal is that you have a piece of land. You work that piece of land. You take the proceeds to feed yourself, and then when you make an excess, you can use the excess to barter and trade. When you can do that, you can make money and goods and services to then build a house for yourself. And so the Bible has, to some degree, written in it this ideal that the individual is supposed to be an entrepreneur.
Well, and which is very interesting because a lot of people, they talk about Paul, right?
Yes.
And all the books that he's written. But what they don't really pick up on is Paul starts a business in each town, right? Yes. And we're not sure exactly what that business is. It's been a tent maker, a carpenter, it's been this or that. But the bottom line is he starts a business, and then he starts a church.
Yes. Well, Paul, whenever he would show up, he'd show up and he would begin preaching. But once he started preaching and gathering converts, if you will, right, he had to have a place to stay. And as he stayed at those places, one of the things that he was sure that he was diligent to do was to find some kind of work. And usually that work was him making tents, which was one of his major professions outside of being a Pharisee before he became converted himself. But that was Paul's principle, as he said to on several occasions. I've told you once before, I'll tell you again, that if a man does not work, he shall not eat. You use us as an example for that. When we were with you, while we could have asked you to provide for us because we were teaching you spiritual things and we were doing the work of preaching and teaching to you, we could have asked you to support us, but we ourselves worked with our hands to provide our day-to-day needs. So, You'll find from the book of Genesis through Revelation that people are entrepreneurs, and the ideal that you are expected to work and do something. The back of the book of Ecclesiastes, King Solomon talks about that being the man's, one of the things for him to do in life is to to follow the word of the Lord, to obey God, but then to work with his hands and find something for himself to do that he's been called to do. That's his lot in life, so that he can then eat from the fruits of his hands, right?
See, and a lot of people don't realize it's the same message in the Quran. The Baha'is have the same message. The Hindus have the same message. It's a universal truth that you have to work in order to survive.
Yes.
And people sort of forget that. They get confused with the religious component and not understanding that we all have to feed ourselves, but more importantly, we have to feed our church.
Jesus was quoting the Old Testament when he said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So it's interesting that we would say that grocery store is necessary because you have to buy bread, but then church is not necessary to have the bread, or the bread of the bread which is the word of God. Right. when Jesus particularly points out, you shall not live by bread alone. So, but point being is, entrepreneurship is not separated from God. In fact, I used to point out to my children all the time, you find me someone who's extremely wealthy, and whether they believe in God or not, I promise you, every principle that God has in place for making and securing and growing wealth, they're keeping those principles. Whether they know they are or not, they are.
Well, Clayton, it's been great to have you as a guest, and don't forget that you need, if you're involved in real estate, to be buying the Julie Talks Money Real Estate COVID Kit, because it has everything that you're going to need, especially if you're a real estate agent or if you're selling your home for sale by owner. We'll see you next week.
You can listen to me every week on ABC 1490 AM KMET radio, and also on SoundCloud, your favorite podcaster.